Hello, and welcome back to Tough Talk. I'm Brian, your host. I have bipolar disorder, and I have a lot to talk about. Today, I wanted to start off this program with a little differently. Um, I got this magazine over the weekend. It's BP magazine, and the BP stands for bipolar. And it's a nice quarterly magazine that has a lot in it related to bipolar lifestyle and the developments that are happening nationally and globally with regards to the treatment of mental illness. And it brings up naturally a lot of talking points that I think are really good to share. And they do a lot of good work here with their journalism. And there aren't a lot of sources for material on the internet about mental illness. So I wanted to share this with you guys. So I put some sticky notes here throughout the magazine as I read it. And I should also say that my one of my sisters pays for this magazine for me, so I want to extend my thanks for you for doing this for me. But right here, this is the spring 2016. Yes, spring 2016. It's about $7 at the newsstand, but mainly you have to get it online because it doesn't publish very much at the grocery store. So right here on page 11 is one of the articles, End Criminalization of Mental Illness, NAMI tells U.S. Senate hearing. So NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, has basically argued that there are an astounding number of cases where people with mental illness encounter the police and are put in jail rather than in a hospital where they need to be. They have argued that these people have not committed crimes and do not deserve to be in jail, and their symptoms worsen while they're in jail versus being in a hospital. And the cost of being treated at a hospital by the county is far less than if they put them in jail in the first place. So there are a lot of reasons why this needs to happen, and I'm very happy that NAMI is there at a national level to advocate for people like myself. As you may recall, when I discussed my diagnosis, I had an encounter with the police, and fortunately that sergeant had decided that it was in my best interest to take me to a hospital, and that person did the right thing. However, there is not enough training, and this is what NAMI is advocating for. There needs to be training at all state departments, at all police departments in each state, to educate the police about the symptoms of mental illness so they can recognize it, so they know when to take somebody to the hospital. So this is a great thing, and I'm in much support of it. The next thing I wanted to discuss is here. Pardon me while I turn the page. It's over here on page 14. Substantial rate of unrecognized bipolar seen in people under 40 prescribed with antidepressants. So basically what that means is that there's a large rate of people with unrecognized bipolar disorder that are currently being prescribed antidepressants for their depression. And essentially what happens is the same story that I had. I was prescribed an antidepressant, and that fed my bipolar disorder and pushed me into a manic state. And what they're advocating for here, and this is coming out of Leeds, England, there's British researchers who are basically coming to the conclusion that clinicians need to do what they call a life history. So they're asking clinicians to ask the patient to self-report a life history of behavior, such that they might be able to uncover bipolar disorder instead of just depression. And this is important because before my diagnosis, if I were to have to give a life history, I had experiences of manic episodes before I was prescribed that medication. And so that would have basically uncovered my illness before I had to go through the pain of being on an antidepressant that was very toxic to me. And that actually feeds right into the next article that I read and noted. This is a person giving a personal, basically, recall of their diagnosis. And this person says, for the first time, it all made sense to me. I began to understand how the combination of my condition and the antidepressant sent my behavior into overdrive. So this is a very common thing. In fact, it might be the most common event that precedes someone's diagnosis with bipolar disorder. So that was something that I didn't know until I read this magazine. And so this person's story is on page 19. If you get this magazine, do read it. It's quite good. So yeah, I just think that's really something. And obviously, the researchers in Leeds, England, are onto something, because the clinicians really do need to ask about a life history before prescribing an antidepressant. It's a very dangerous medication for anyone with bipolar disorder. And since so much of it is undiagnosed, they have to basically expect that everyone that comes in asking needs to be screened for it. So I think that's moving in the right direction if we can get doctors to do that. If you are a doctor and you are watching this, please screen somebody and ask them about if there have ever been a period of time where they had thoughts of grandiosity, where they felt like they were something more than human for a brief period of time. I think it's really important that they get screened for bipolar disorder. It could really help. Moving on, there are there's a larger article with some interesting quotes that they took out of context here. It's about having a flight plan, self-knowledge plus practical strategies that will allow you to control your hypomanic state. I think it's very interesting. I like the article. I look forward to reading some more of it. But the quotes are very interesting. One, it's hard to tell someone you're not doing well when they have lots of energy, are meeting new people, and are coming up with new ideas. So that's basically to say that, when you're in a hypomanic state, you don't often get told that you're not doing well because you look like you're doing fantastic. And fortunately, I have a therapist who is excellent at picking up these symptoms, and he has safeguarded me from, he's told me that you may not be doing so well, and that has helped me identify it and plan accordingly according to my own flight plan that I've developed for myself to reduce my activity level and to basically just keep myself safeguarded. And then the next quote is, through meditation, I'm able to be more grounded in reality and think twice, even 3 times about what I want to do before I get too excited. Sometimes 4 times, sometimes 5, 6, 7 times. You get the picture. If thinking twice and 3 times is good for you, that's good. I shouldn't really make fun of that. But twice is enough. You don't want to be second guessing yourself so many times when you're hypomanic that it's actually feeding your hypomania. I've been there. So I have enough said rule where if I mull over a subject too many times, I go, enough said. I need to get my mind on something else. So but whatever works, whatever works for you, whatever brings you the most the most compensation, I guess, for your state of mind. And then there's another quote here: if it's not so different than fizz in a soda can, you don't shake it up, you contain it. For myself, that has never worked. It's always bubbled over or exploded. So I tend to find ways to let it out slowly. You know, I pop the tab and let it fizz out very carefully. You know, and you know, it's not so much shaking it up, but I guess stirring it a little bit, just, you know, with the right music, with the right stimulus to kind of get the desired emotion to come out. So, you know, everybody has their own thing. If containing it is the right thing for you to do, then that's what you have to do. If you have to let it out carefully, then that's what you have to do. It all depends on how your behavior develops in a hypomanic state. And continuing just a little bit, it's hard to turn the pages here. This person says, I don't get happy, joy that most people get with hypomania. The irritability is a real hallmark for me. I can understand that, because I have hypomanic states where I get extremely irritable, but it's like tossing a coin. Sometimes I am really happy. But the thing is, my hypomanic states, because my medication is so dialed in, they're very mild. My hypomanic states still occur, but they're very mild. They're little hills. They still last as long as you would expect. They still have a little bit of depression coming right after, as I've discussed in my depression episode. But I guess what I'm saying is that they're much more mild because my medication treats it so well. So that's number one. And after that, you have to learn how to deal with what you're going to experience no matter what. And this is what this whole article is about how you deal with it. And ways that you can deal with it. But for me, I've actually been, you know, you could, like I said, flip a coin. If I go hypomanic just a little tiny bit, hypo being just like this small spell of slightly elevated mood and everything. But for me, I can either be irritable and cranky and highly energized at the same time, or I can be happy and in a very good mood, and so on. But I've been on both sides of the fence. It's harder for me to recognize a hypomanic state when I'm feeling good, because I can't distinguish that from naturally feeling good, because I spend a lot of time feeling depressed and such. So it's harder for me to recognize that. The irritability really pops out. Like, I know when I'm in that kind of mood. I know when that's happening. So I immediately start treating myself for it and dialing back. But when I'm happy, you know, I want to go socialize. I want to, you know, go to the movies and things like nothing terribly unnatural. But perhaps it would be best, if I could recognize it and stay home and rest a bit more, because that's the thing, is you gotta start resting a little earlier, because that can help stave off the severity of depression that's gonna follow. So yeah, they say you snooze, you win, right? I just saw that. Yeah, sleep is actually, it's not overrated. You really need to do that to okay, so that's good. That's good for recovery. Let's see. There's one last thing, and that's this article on page 36. Pump it up, your fitness IQ. And so this is about fitness, because one of the number one things that you can do to combat your bipolar and your mental illness is to exercise. And so I'm seeing a lot more articles about exercise in this magazine each time it comes out. But at this point, I want to set this down for a second, this magazine, and talk about fitness, and talk about what started me along the path towards fitness. Because where I left off on the last video, well, the last video was about depression. I mean the video before that, where I talked about my last hospitalization. coming home from that was, well, my life was very different, and I was very different. I had a lot of post-traumatic stress, and sleep was extremely difficult. And I went to the gym after my therapy appointments because it was the gym and my therapist office they were right next to each other. So I couldn't basically say no, I'm not going to do it. I had every reason to go. And the other issue is, I didn't have a lot of opportunity to exercise at home. I was very sedentary, and I wanted to feel better. I wanted to feel more awake. I was feeling very sedated by my lithium that I was taking at the time. And I just, I needed to find that alertness that I get out of exercise. So that's why I went to start with, but I went very infrequently. It was once a week. Sometimes it was once every 2 weeks. But one of the times that I was there, I was sitting on the exercise bike doing some cardio, and I felt really out of place. I felt like, why am I here? Why should I be here? What am I doing? I should go home. I have no business being here. I mean, with everything that I've been through, I really should spend like 6 months in bed trying to recover. And then I go, heck no. I probably have every reason to be here because of that. More than anyone else. And I decided to do something different. I looked at the people in the room that weren't in shape. I looked at the people who were there because they had hope, not because they had athletic gifts. And I went, what if I'm like them? What if I throw myself in like them and I have hope that I'm going to change myself? And I pondered on this some more as I went home. And at this point in time, I was so depressed and sad and really, really hurt that my diet was really awful. It consisted of a lot of junk food and comfort food because I had just gotten out of a situation where I had starved away 37 pounds in 10 days. And there was an overreaction. I had an overreaction. I wanted to eat everything. So, I did, and I was gaining weight. And after eating all of that food, I'm thinking after the gym, I'm going, I need to make a big change, or else I'm going to change for a very big way, in a way that scares me, that I don't want to be. And I needed to make a big change just to exert some dominance over my life situation, that I still had control. I needed to know that. And I knew I needed to do that. And so I went, I could go to the gym, consistently. I could work hard. I could be there for a long period of time. I can do what I know how to do to turn my life around. And I can surprise everybody. And I can surprise myself. And so that got me started. And so I started going 3 days a week. And after about 3 weeks, I was at my therapist and I went, I feel like I want to go every day. And I did that. I did that for the month of November in 2014. And it was exhausting, but I remember at the end of it, I'm fixing dinner, and I'm starting to eat a little bit better. I'm starting to actually put some vegetables in my pastaroni, and with my chicken and all of that. I'm still eating a ton of pasta, and I'm something like 335 pounds. But my sister walks in and she goes, "Brian, you're getting really big, like muscular big." And I remember feeling very proud about that. The same sister that, you know, buys me this magazine. That started me feeling better. That started my recovery from that experience. And you know, the next year in April, I got back on the 6-day schedule. But it was actually a training regimen. You know, it had everything that you need to really start training your body. And I'd gone like 3 days a week up until that point. You know, I thought that was really good, and it really was. But doing it going to the gym every day in November, that and having that reaction was that kind of got me started. But I learned last year, in the months of April, June, and July, I started soaking up all the information I could about fitness, about weightlifting, about Olympic sport, about nutrition. And when I'm soaking up all of this information, I come across some facts about exercise that are essential to the lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle for mental illness. And it surprises me, because the part of the brain that mental illness, my hair's sticking up on this side. I've fixed it so many times, but anyway, the part of the brain that is affected most by bipolar disorder is the cerebral cerebellum, because they call it the little brain in science because it has more neurons. That is white matter, active thinking brain. It has more neurons in the cerebral cerebellum than in the whole rest of your brain. It's a little slight over half, you know, and that's fascinating. But naturally, if you have any mental illness, any defect in the cellular structure of the neurons, naturally, where the concentration is highest, that part of the brain is going to be affected most. But that part of the brain also is your motor cortex. It controls how you move. It controls your arms, your fingers, your toes. And if you're exercising, if you are stressing, your motor function, trying to move heavy weight, guess what that does? It trains your cerebral cerebellum to get stronger and to actually be healthier. It increases the blood flow to the cerebral cerebellum. And it's amazing. It actually helps it heal. So that sold me on it. I was like, you know, in whatever capacity, whether I compete, whether I do anything at all, I need to be active the rest of my life. Because I need to keep this healthy. I want to avoid Parkinson's disease. I want to avoid all of the things that could happen because of my condition. So that was number one that I learned. And then 2, the way that exercise helps you sleep. It helps your hormone cycle, helps your hormones get into balance. Exercise can be a strong complement. It can be a strong complementary activity that fights against mood instability. It is a strong mood stabilizer by nature of keeping your hormones in balance and your brain healthy. It also helps you sleep better. It does. Your body has more to repair of itself, and so will reach deeper stages of sleep to perform those repairs to your body, and that is good for your brain. So it's fantastic. So I learned all of that as I got started really getting into it, and I've kept up with the exercise ever since, and I love it. I love what it does. It's a great release for me when I get frustrated with my situation, with my condition, with life in general. It's a fantastic release for me, and so I highly recommend that if you have mental illness, that you get started exercising. And this article is here to help motivate in the same way. These are the what they call fitness myths. And so here on page 36, the first fitness myth is overestimating the time commitment. You don't have to exercise every day. They recommend about 45 minutes 3 times a week. I would say to get started, you really only need to be there twice a week for a half hour to 45 minutes. I think that there's plenty that you can do in that amount of time. And if you're very good at time management and you can rush through every exercise, you could even get away with 20 minutes. But if you're putting in the effort to get to the gym, you might as well be there for a little while. The second myth is that it's an all or nothing thing. That's not true. And in my case, I was worried when I got started. In 2014, end of summer, I was really worried that I couldn't do it. I had bad days that were just so terrible that I couldn't get out of the house and didn't want to be around other people. So in that situation, I basically said, I'm going to let time tell the tale here. I'm going to let time decide whether or not I get any decent results out of exercise. I didn't want to tell the story before I had a chance to do my best. And if my best wasn't good enough, then nothing is ever going to be. So at that point, I just said, you know what? I'm not going to put myself down or talk myself out of it before I have the chance to do it. So I let time tell, and it's really not all or nothing. You get a lot of benefit, even if you go. Here's the thing: I spent some weeks only going to the gym once a week, one time in one whole week. But you know what? You can still maintain the muscle. You can still maintain the muscle, size, mass, etc., and strength, going once a week, if you work hard enough. But you know what? If you can only get there once a week, and you desire to do your best, you will. So don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of doing your best. You will find your desire there. And it's not all or nothing. You can some activity. You always get a benefit out of exercise, even if you can only do it once a week. Hey, you know what? You still get a huge benefit out of doing that. The worst thing is to just quit. And if you do quit for a while, you can get started again. I've been off of the gym being sick like several times for a whole month. Okay, but you can get started again. And it comes back very fast. So sometimes quitting is not the worst thing as long as you get started again. Just focus on that. The third myth is, you're not getting enough sleep. Well, you can imagine as someone with PTSD and night terrors that, I did not get enough sleep. But I have learned to do some amazing things on very little sleep. I've learned to work out at the gym and recover with only 5 hours of sleep, and get myself back there the next day. So sleep, as much as it matters, and yes, your strength improves and your muscularity improves when you get more sleep. But you can still make a lot happen even if you can't get enough sleep. So, if you're in a situation where you can't get enough sleep, don't think that that's a requirement for making this happen. And in many ways, as you get exercising, you will improve your sleep anyway by the nature of it. And so it actually makes your sleep better. So there's not a lot there to really be afraid of, I don't think. The fourth is picking the wrong pursuit. Yeah, you want to know what you're doing when you're going to the gym. Are you training yourself in cardio specifically to do some running activity, to do some endurance activity? Or do you really want to get muscular? And in which case, the cardio is not going to help you really get muscular, with the caveat that if you do all of the right weightlifting, the cardio will help you because it'll help your hormones and your circulation, which helps to grow the muscle. So, you need to know what you're doing. And if you are completely lost at this point, I recommend you go to my blog, because I have written a lot about fitness, about exercises that you can do. It's awonderfullift.com, and it's just like this channel is. It's a Wonderful Lift TV. It's awonderfullift.com. So go there. It's a WordPress blog. It's really good. And I'm not just saying that. My family has said so quite often for me. Let's see. The fifth one is thinking cardio is enough. That same subject, just a little bit more specific. Underestimating your eating is number 6. And that's the thing, is that I haven't read this here, but just off the top of my head, like, I didn't estimate how much protein I needed to have to get muscular. I had to basically infuse my diet with 100 grams more protein than I actually felt comfortable eating. And actually, I found that peanut butter is my favorite way to get that extra protein. I don't like eating that much more meat. It's not very comfortable for me. But yeah, it's you can't underestimate what you eat, and as well as if you really take a heavy weightlifting program, the diet that you're currently eating is not a surplus of calories. You'd be surprised, even if you have like the worst habits. If you start building muscle right away and rapidly, that's actually a very nutritious diet, provided you increase your protein by that 100 grams. Because then those calories start to feed the muscle that you're building. And so some people can really underestimate how much they need to eat. Which is actually a pleasant surprise, So like if you want to start losing weight, and I've lost in this whole process something like 75 pounds, and I'm continuing to lose weight. I weighed in at 267 today, actually. And my heaviest was 345 before I got started at the gym. But the thing is, like, if you want to get started on a weight loss program, I highly recommend exercise to get you started. And then the seventh myth here is never changing your workout. Change it as you get bored. If you have time away from the gym, when you come back, change it up. Do something different. You'll learn more, and you learn what exercises really target the muscles that you desire to work. So it's really cool when you do it that way. 8, measuring the wrong results. Don't just measure your weight. Measure your muscularity. Get a tape measure out. Put it around your arms, your legs, and measure that stuff. And feel good when you're making progress. And put it around your waist if you're losing inches, but your weight is the same. You're putting on muscle. It's going up. So, it's not good to just get upset if one thing isn't going well. There are, find the 5 other things that are going great. Okay, So I've been there. And that's the end of that article. Let's see. There was one more thing I wanted to say about all of that. I think it was a separate article that I read about weight loss, and it had to say that something like, exercise does not have a direct. It was in this article. It was in this magazine. Exercise does not have a direct effect on obesity. Okay, not a direct, but it improves your mood, makes you feel better. It improves your body image as your body starts getting stronger. And for those reasons, I would argue it does have a direct impact on obesity, because I know for a fact that when I was 345 pounds and my stomach was so big, I couldn't tie my shoes. I couldn't tie my shoes. I couldn't see my feet. And that's alarming considering I have size 14 feet. I am Bigfoot. So when I can't see my feet, I'm very scared. But after exercising and making those first gains, getting strong and big and strong such that my sister noticed it, improved my self-esteem so much that it was easy to make dietary changes afterwards. That is to say that it's hard to immediately make dietary changes and stick with it unless you have already accomplished something physically. Unless you have gotten that regular exercise and gotten into that routine and stuck with it. Because once you do that, it's pretty easy to stick with a diet. And that's what I did. Is I started a diet in January after Christmas, and basically all of last year and this I have kept with it, just slowly and steadily, and it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to do. But exercise is that's where I would start. That's where I would start every time. I don't care. So anyway, thank you. This has been a very fun episode for me. I'm gonna try to cut out that point where I lost track of my mind of what word to use in that situation. But anyway, if you liked it, please subscribe. Please share this with anyone that has mental illness. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you. I'm Brian again, and I have bipolar disorder, and I'm not ashamed of it. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.